Let's now turn to the question of the nature of existence and how we fit into the picture. So if we don't look up for what is true, let's look out and figure out what the world is like and how we fit into the picture. The first question is kind of a silly one in a sense. It's a question of what there is. What is there in the universe? The 20th century American analytic philosopher W.V. Quine put the matter as simply as anyone ever has. In a 1948 paper he wrote called On What There Is. When I first ran across this quote in college, I typed it on a little piece of paper and put it above my desk. I still have it. And this is called the ontological problem, the problem of being, or the question of what actually exists. Quine says, a curious thing about the ontological problem is its simplicity. It can be put in 3 Anglo-Saxon monosyllables. What is there? It can be answered, moreover, in a single word, everything. And everyone will accept this answer as true. However, this is merely to say that there is what there is. There remains room for disagreement over specifics. There are 2 things to say about this quote. The first is that everything turns out to be rather a lot of stuff. And the amount continues to expand exponentially as we learn more and more. To me, the universe is a source of infinite mystery and wonder. The best estimates, by the way, are that there are probably about 10,000 civilizations at our level of technological advancement in the Milky Way galaxy alone. And we are one of 125 billion galaxies in the universe. The virgin birth seems chump change to me in the miracle category. So, what is there? Everything. Everything's a lot of stuff. But what is it? Well, there you get into the disagreement over specifics. In the ancient world, Plato and a lot of Christian thinkers thought that the basic nature of things was spirit. God is spirit, and those who worship God worship in spirit and in truth, as the New Testament says. Other people in the past, most notably Aristotle, maintained that the basic nature of things is material, and that everything is finally matter, and that what we call mind and spirit are simply interactions among particular kinds of matter. Many scientists today hold this view, none more vociferously than Daniel Dennett. But the problem is, neither of these explanations seems adequate. We need a way of thinking about ourselves and our world that makes sense of all of life. Not just our thoughts and ideas, not just our tissues and our proclivities, but everything. Alfred North Whitehead, one of the leading thinkers of the 20th century, a mathematician, wrote Principia Mathematica with Bertrand Russell, turned his focus in the 1920s from mathematics and logic to philosophy, published Religion in the Making in 1926 when he was 65, followed 3 years later by Process and Reality, the landmark volume that gave the name to the school of philosophy that is his hallmark, Process Philosophy. This attempt to explain what there is, he called speculative philosophy. He said, speculative philosophy is the endeavor to frame a coherent, logical, necessary system of general ideas in terms of which every element of our experience can be interpreted. Whitehead was looking for a way to think about our experience of the world that would be comprehensive. It would include every element of our experience, coherent. All the pieces would fit together, no mind, body, spirit, world dichotomy. Logical, nothing supernatural or magical. And perhaps most important, necessary. A careful examination of the world inevitably leads to these ideas. It's a tall order. Where does it lead us? Since Whitehead adapted many ideas from the ancient Greeks, most notably Heraclitus, Plato, and Aristotle, let's begin with the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi was the center of the world for the Greeks, their most revered source of knowledge. When asked to answer questions or predict the future, the oracle often responded with a riddle. Croesus, reputed to be one of the wealthiest men in the ancient world, once asked the oracle if he should invade the Persians. The oracle replied, "If you do, a great kingdom will fall." He invaded. A great kingdom did fall, his own. But the most famous of the oracle's pronouncements concerned a boat made of planks. What is it that makes a boat a boat? As time passes, the planks in a boat rot and need to be replaced. There eventually comes a time when none of the original planks are left. The boat looks the same, but its material has changed completely. Is it the same boat? The owner would say, yes, this is my boat. Even if none of the original materials from which it was built remained, it's still my boat. Even if it was originally oak and I replaced the planks with pine and now it is completely pine, it is still my boat. What is important about the planks, according to the oracle, is not what they're made of, but that they are shaped in a way that they relate to each other in a particular way. In other words, the boat is not the material it's made from, but something much more interesting. The boat is the relationship among the planks. Walt Whitman applies this principle that things are the way they are related to themselves and other things in his celebrated poem, Song of Myself. Song of Myself opens with these celebrated lines. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. My tongue, every atom of my blood formed from this soil, this air. Born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I, now 37 years old in perfect health, begin hoping to cease not till death. Whitman begins his song of himself with a tale of atoms and ancestry. Certain Whitman-esque atoms had been gathered from the soil and air and put together in a distinctive way to yield up the self of which Walt now sings. Song of Myself is a poem of 1,346 lines, and Whitman refers to himself by name only once in the 497th line. Since this is a poem about him, and it's a long poem, and he only mentions himself once, we should pay attention to the particular location. The line is this: Walt Whitman, a cosmos. Cosmos is the opposite of chaos. According to the dictionary, a cosmos is an orderly, harmonious, self-inclusive system. The cosmos is often used to refer to the entire universe as an ordered, harmonious whole. This reference to himself as a cosmos explains Whitman's statement that every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Whitman's central insight is that the self exists in a system where everyone is who they are by virtue of their relationships to everyone and everything else. Whitman writes, "I know I am solid and sound. To me, the converging objects of the universe perpetually flow. And these tend inward to me, and I tend outward to them, and such as it is to be of these, more or less I am. And of these, one and all, I weave the song of myself." Allow me to make a counterintuitive suggestion. In a culture dominated by the language of self-determination and self-reliance, perhaps our understanding as individuals is too meager. Our sense of self usually stops at our skin or our clothes or maybe at the walls of our home, rather than at the edge of the universe. The essence of an individual, according to Whitman, is made up of all the relationships he or she represents. If teased all the way out through space and all the way back in time, these relationships ultimately include everything whatsoever. Some of these relationships may appear trivial, except when you realize that everything had to happen precisely as it did for you and me to be here as we are today. It turns out that the story of Galen Gingrich's The Cosmos did not begin on September the 3rd, 1957, or even 9 months before that. It began in the beginning. On these terms, I am best described as the collection of relationships I represent. I was born on a farm in a Mennonite community, grew up in the late 60s and early 70s in South Arkansas, attended a Mennonite school in Lancaster, went to college in Lancaster, divinity school in Princeton, graduate school in Chicago. My father is a Mennonite minister. My niece, Krista, died of a brain tumor at age 11. My daughter, Zoe's mother, and I are divorced. I went to All Souls 16 years ago, where Zoe was dedicated on the chancel and where Holly and I were married 9 years ago. These experiences and countless others beside make me who I am, not in the way a potter applies steady pressure to shape a bowl, but in the way flour, butter, sugar, and other ingredients go together to make a cake. If you take away the relational ingredients that make up my life, what remains has little value, and certainly not as Galen Gingrich. I am made up of, constituted by my relationships. This is the first principle of all existence. We are constituted by our relationships. Whitehead turned poetry into philosophy. Using the rigor of mathematics and logic, he insisted that everything in the universe is constituted by its relationship to everything else. This principle applies to everything. Nothing, not people, not rocks, not galaxies, is what it is strictly within itself. Think about that for a minute. Think about what the relationships are that make you, you. We live in a relational universe. This is not just good theology and good philosophy, it's also good science. The first principle of the universe is not independence. Each thing is a thing unto itself. but rather the opposite, utter dependence. As humans, we are utterly dependent on the parents who conceived us, the plants and animals who daily give their lives for our nourishment, the trees that reverse our cycle of taking in oxygen and giving off carbon dioxide, the sun that warms our atmosphere and lights our path. In every respect, we are utterly dependent. This principle does not mean that our future is controlled by outside forces, however. Within the constraints imposed by the relationships that constitute us, we have options for how to move into the future. Think about it this way. The past is the raw material out of which we build the future. You and I each have a unique collection of materials. The circumstances of our birth, our talents, our past relationships, our skills, the mistakes we've made. Within the limits imposed by those materials, we are free to build the future in whatever way we choose. Whitehead puts it as follows. Each moment of life, he says, arises as an effect facing its past and ends as a cause facing its future. The present moment is an effect of the past and a cause of the future. This is the way the world works. The way time moves forward and history unfolds and human life proceeds. Within the range of the options we have available at any given moment, we employ the resources provided by the past in order to create the future. This means that there are no predetermined outcomes looming on the horizon, nor is life a chaos of random events. We have a decisive influence on how the future unfolds. The difference we make, for good or for ill, will be real and enduring. There's no divine script to ensure that everything will turn out all right. Sometimes it won't. There is only us, heirs of a past we cannot change, creators of a future we cannot delay. There is only us.